I was a little worried about the criminal record check. Hello YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Dan Does Korea. Today marks the 10th anniversary of my departure from Canada, and tomorrow will mark the 10th year anniversary of my arrival in Korea. I wanted to do some kind of video, I didn't know what to do, so I thought I'd talk about the why and how I ended up teaching English in South Korea for a decade. My interest in a life outside Canada started kind of at an early age. I have an aunt and an uncle and older cousins who have spent time, quite a bit of time, traveling and living abroad all over the world. I remember hearing their stories and seeing pictures. Specifically, I remember my uncle showing us a slideshow of his adventures in Africa. And as a little kid, I thought it was fantastic. I also had an elementary school teacher, Mr. Morrissey, who showed us a slideshow of his 2 years in Africa. I believe it was Botswana, but he taught there for 2 years. And as a little kid, I was blown away. My bedroom, as a kid growing up, I had a desk. Built into the desktop was just a big map of the world. I remember trying to learn all the names of the countries and where they were on the map. I'm proud to say that now I can name and locate every single country on a world map. I'm currently working on the world capitals, and it's proving to be a little bit more difficult, but I'm getting there. When I was a little bit older in high school and teenage years, I got hooked on a TV show called Lonely Planet, or also known as Pilot Guides, I think. It's just a show where they follow a traveler. He goes to some part of the world and just kind of has adventures. And I could not get enough of that show. Because of that, after high school, I decided not to go to university right away. I worked for a bit, saved some money, and then when I was 18, a buddy and I hopped on a plane and I did my first backpacking trip. From that moment on, I was like, I have to see more of the world. After university, I got a job. I was still playing in a band from my university years, and I did that for a few years, and then the band just kind of disbanded. I wasn't really getting anywhere paying off my student loans, so I decided that it was time for an adventure. So why Korea? Why am I in South Korea and not somewhere else in the world? There's many places in the world where English teaching is a thing. You can teach English in South America, in Europe, in the Middle East, and of course Asia. When it came time to decide where I was going to go, there's a few different factors. I knew I didn't want to be in a place that I've already been. I wanted to try something new, so that meant Europe was out. I didn't want to live in the Middle East. So now it was down to South America or Asia. And the next factor was money. I needed some place where I could live comfortably and still save money to pay off my student loans. It may have changed by now, but at the time, they just weren't offering enough money. So I chose not to include South America as one of the places on my list. So that left Asia. I would have loved to go to Southeast Asia, some Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, somewhere around there. I would have loved it, but again, they just didn't offer the same amount of money that East Asia did. Japan, South Korea, and China definitely offered the most amount of money. I knew I didn't want to live in China, so that left it to Japan and Korea. I had a buddy from elementary school, a good friend of mine, who taught in Japan for a couple years, and he loved it. He had a good time. There was one thing he said that kind of turned me off Japan, and he told me how much he paid for an apple. He told me it's like $10 for an apple. So, because of that apple, Japan was off the list. There is another reason why I chose South Korea. I was a music major at university. I played in the orchestra, and we had several South Korean exchange students in our program. I didn't get to know a lot of them. A lot of them kind of kept to themselves. They're very studious, so they didn't go to the parties. But there was one girl, Seo-jin, and she became kind of one of our group of friends. And so I chatted with her a lot, and she did teach me how to say 안녕하세요 and 감사합니다 and a few other phrases before I had even thought about coming to Korea. So there was that. And then there was, at one of my apartments in London, Ontario, The convenience store that was just downstairs and across the street, Grace Mini Mart, was owned by a South Korean. Sam was his name. He had moved to Korea so his kid could get an education, a Canadian education. It has worked out for them because he is now a doctor. I got his son on Facebook. So congrats, Hanuel. Listen, man, if your dad is in Korea right now, get me his phone number. I'd love to take him out for a beer sometime. So between Sam and Hanuel and Sojin, I just had more knowledge of South Korea, and I knew South Koreans could be friendly. So that was it. That's what made me decide South Korea. The decision was made. South Korea was the place. Now I had to figure out how to get here. So here's a few technical details if you want to come to Korea. It might be a little bit outdated because this was 10 years ago. I don't think much has changed. So first, you need to be from an English-speaking country, those being Canada, USA, the UK, Ireland, South Africa, Australia, or New Zealand. You need a university degree, any degree. It doesn't really matter what, as long as it's from university. And you need a clean criminal record. Those are all the prerequisites you need before kind of looking for a job in Korea as an English teacher. So I fit all those. I was a little worried about the criminal record check. Just joking. So next, once you fit all those, you got to find a job. You can come here on a look for work visa, I believe, but that's not the avenue I would recommend. I recommend finding a recruiting agency and going through them. I contacted my friend Nicole from high school, who I knew was in Korea at the time, and she hooked me up with the recruiting agency she used. They hooked me up. Within a week, I had job offers coming in. I did turn down 2 job offers before accepting one. The first one I turned down was teaching English and music. The only issue I had with it was that it was at a Christian, like, religious school, and I didn't really want to be involved in that kind of thing. The other one that I turned down, it was a big private academy. I remember they told me they had like 25 foreign teachers, and I just didn't want to be in a place that big. And the other thing with that school was that the apartment was in the same building as the school, and that I didn't really want to be that close. I wanted to be close to my school, but I didn't want to be that close to the school. So I turned down that one. And then I remember late one night, my mom coming in with the telephone saying that there's a call from South Korea. So I answered it, and it was a director at a small hagwon or academy, and we chatted for a very short time, 5-10 minutes, a couple questions. I can't remember what the questions were, but she seemed really nice. So I think the next day I got a job offer from that school. The contract came through email, and I sent it back. I had a job, so the job was secured. And so now I just had to go around and make sure I had all the correct paperwork. First, of course, you need your passport. You got to bring a couple extra passport photos. You need a signed copy of your employment contract. You need a criminal record check. So I remember going down to Newmarket, I believe, to the RCMP office there and getting my criminal record check. I had to contact my university and get transcripts sealed, and a copy of my diploma, and had to get that notarized. So there's a trip to the lawyer's office in there. I remember a couple trips down to the Korean embassy. After that, I think I was all set up. I just had to wait for my new boss to book me a flight. So that came, and within a month, it was time to leave for Korea. So the date was set. I was going to fly out on November 29th, 2010. My sister was planning on getting married. So her and her fiance, I'm pretty sure they did it for me, but I think they moved the date of their wedding a little earlier than planned. So I could attend, and I'm very thankful that they did. 1 week before my flight, it was my birthday. I remember spending my birthday the best way possible. I was at my grandmother's apartment in Mississauga, Ontario. It was just my grandmother and my mother and me, and we spent the night playing Scrabble. I think we played 2 games. And my grandmother didn't even know it was my birthday until the next morning when my mom told her, and my grandma came out and apologized that she didn't say happy birthday. And she gave me $50. And then later on that afternoon, I had two aunts show up. One was in from Ottawa, the other one was from Burlington, and I had a fantastic little afternoon chat with them while we watched the news. Not just any news. This was the same day that there was an altercation between North Korea and South Korea on one of the islands near Incheon, Yeonpyeong, I think. Four South Koreans were killed, and I remember talking with my aunts and there being discussion about whether or not I should actually go. I know my mom was really concerned, but my mind was made up and I was going no matter what. So I was too excited. So a week later, I had a morning flight. I was so excited. I just told my parents, drop me off the night before. I'm going to spend the night at the airport. And so I did. I spent the night at the airport, kind of walking around. I couldn't sleep. I was too excited. And the next morning, I was off on a plane. Quick stop in Chicago, and then off to Incheon Airport in South Korea. I got off the plane. I went through the visa, immigration stuff. I picked up my luggage. I went through the departure gate, and I saw a man holding my name on a piece of paper. I'd never felt more important in my life. This has never happened to me before, so it was a big deal. He helped me with my luggage into the van, and an hour and 15 minutes later, we were in my new city of Suji. He pulled up to my new apartment, and we had to wait for my boss to show up. She wasn't there at first because I guess the academy was still open, but her husband came, so I got to meet her husband first. Super nice guy, still a friend of mine today. He showed me into my apartment. Small. Maybe I have some pictures I can show you of my very first apartment. I might even have video of my first night in Korea. I'll see if I can find that. Okay, so here we are. This is my ride from the airport. A very nice driver. Doesn't speak a word of English. And this supposedly is my apartment, but I think we're just waiting for my school director to show up. I was amazed at the amount of apartment buildings here. He showed me to my apartment, and he said he'd be back in an hour with my boss, and they were going to take me out to dinner. I cleaned up, and an hour later, my boss shows up at my apartment, and they asked me what I want to eat. I wasn't quite ready to try anything new. I didn't want to try anything, any new foreign foods yet. So I just said pizza, and they took me to Mr. Pizza, and that was my first meal in Korea, was Mr. Pizza. The next day, she picked me up and took me to the academy, and I didn't teach for the first day or two, I think, but by day 3, I was teaching. I was a teacher now. I was an English teacher. I remember my first class, 2 girls, Mary and Alice. It was a lot of fun. I was nervous, as most new teachers would be, but yeah, it was a good experience. I had an apartment, I had a job. What I didn't have was foreign friends. It was a very small academy at the time. It's since grown. There were no other foreigners working there. I remember walking home one night from work. I heard English voices behind me, so I turned around right away, and sure enough, there was 2 foreigners. I introduced myself, and I asked them, where do the foreigners hang out? So they drew me a map and told me that every Wednesday night, there is a trivia night at a bar called Exit. The very next Wednesday, I found my way there and introduced myself to some people, and boom, I had a big group of friends now. They have all since left Korea. I'm the only one left, but I know some of them are going to watch this video, so hey guys, I miss you. Good times at trivia night. Thanks, Rick. And that's about it. That's the story of how and why I came to Korea. I hope this video is not going to be too long. I'm trying to keep the videos a little short, but I start talking and I can't stop. I want to say thank you again to people who've been subscribing. It's been fantastic meeting you guys or chatting with you guys. I was chatting with a guy from Texas who's going to be moving here in a couple years. Someone from Germany. This is great, guys. I'm loving it. So keep the comments coming. If you have any questions, please let me know. So for now, I'm going to say annyeonghaseyo, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Cheers.